Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today I want to talk about keybinds. I often get questions about why I keybind certain things to certain buttons, or why my HUD is laid out the way that it is. People just looking for insight to help them craft their own HUD and their own UI. Now, I did make a video about this a long time ago, but I figured it was probably time for an updated version. I'll cover my thoughts behind my HUD and my layout, and also cover a few other things you might want to consider when modifying yours. So first of all, my HUD itself. Many people notice my HUD is kind of crowded towards the center of the screen, and for me personally, that's very important. You know, my earlier days in MMOs, I would definitely classify myself as a bit of a tunnel vision kind of player. Even to this day, I still feel like tunneling dictates some of my actions in game. So as a natural reply to this, I decided that I needed more elements of the UI closer to the center of my vision, with my character as centered as possible as well. That's why my camera isn't adjusted in any way to maybe see more of the arena or the mechanics that are going on. So all the information and elements on my UI are inside of my sort of tunnel vision where my attention is focused. That also innately forces my tunnel vision to almost expand to like fit all those things in it because they're all just sitting on the edge of that vision. Everything just sits so close to the middle of the screen to draw my attention, but without crowding it, at least not too much for me, that I can't see what I'm doing. It's simple and effective, and honestly, if I didn't do this, I would definitely not be able to do some of the things that I do in game. But it's far from the only thing I see people do. I see a lot of people push everything possible out of the center, and honestly, I'm kind of envious of it. My brain just can't operate on that front. I see people outright hide some of their skills, like their basic 1-2-3 combo, and they don't even keep them on the screen. They just always know what buttons those are, and then maybe only keep the super important cooldowns that you can actually see if you were to look at their HUD. It makes sense with how simple executing base combos like that is on some jobs, but I just can't imagine doing it personally, so that's why I have this set up kind of the way that I have it. Now, as for my actual keybinds, I have a very simple philosophy on how I determine where my keybinds will go. I think that it's easiest to keybind around whatever you're using for your movement buttons. Some people use WASD, some people actually move their hand over and maybe do like an RDFG or something like that. For me, I actually do QWES, so I strafe with Q and E, and then W is for moving forward. S is for like minor adjustments. I do play on standard, so if I want to just backpedal like a smidge, but I don't want to turn around, especially for mechanics where you have to be facing a particular direction, that's just the most comfortable thing for me, and that's really just a last resort. Now, I do also use the left and right click on my mouse to move, and that's really important because sometimes I just need to do that while I'm hitting specific keybinds. Now, as for the binds themselves, I try to keep them somewhat near my QWES. My keybinds are set up to be 1 through 6, and then I use Control and Shift modifiers to just change what those buttons do. So I'll use 1 through 6, Control 1 through 6, and Shift 1 through 6. Honestly, 6 is kind of my limit, and I really try to avoid binding to that if I can avoid it. But, I mean, I guess I could always move my movement skills over, but that's not that important. Everything is central around Q, W, E, and S, so even if I could expand my reach a bit, it doesn't really matter as long as I can actually reach Control and Shift. I do also use some nearby letters. RT and F right now are my go-tos, but I have historically used Z, X, C, and V. I just like to get rid of all those kind of minute functions that those buttons tend to do and either move things like auto run or add more useful functions to those things, or just keybind skills themselves. They're just other buttons to be used, and saving them for really basic commands that don't help me in the heat of combat just isn't much of my interest wheelhouse. Now, as for what I actually do with those keybinds, 1 through 6, I normally just have my most basic skills on. 1-2-3 combos, basic single target abilities, nothing major, just stuff that I'll be pressing very frequently. Filler abilities, if you will. For Control 1 through 6, I often try to add a lot of AoE skills on there, especially for like Control 1 through 4. So I'll very often just be using those either as AoE combos or AoE cooldowns or anything of the sort. That's like my little AoE hotbar. Towards 5 and 6, I sometimes throw utility on there just because I want to, and I figure why not, I'll make it work. And then Shift 1 through 6 is kind of a toss-up. On some jobs, I'll use that for more combo buttons, especially if jobs have like branching combos, or it's like Monk where they have, you know, flank and rear combos. I'll swap between those two. But some jobs, it's just cooldowns. Like I'll throw some form of cooldown on there. I don't even know. It could be a defensive for a tank. It could be a healing skill. It could be like a bubble, like Asylum, or I don't know. It just changes job to job. Shift 1 through 6 is really my most flexible set of keybinds that it just comes down to feeling, and I can't really explain in any particular case why I have keybinds there. They just feel right to me. As for RT and F, I try to save these for buttons that are very important, but that I don't use frequently. Now again, this kind of comes down to feeling, because some jobs I put really awkward skills, especially on R and T. Dragoon, my wheeling thrust and my fang and claw are on R and T. I don't know why I feel the need to do this, but I just really, really like those buttons for those skills. So it's probably the one job that is the least like that. Other skills I'll put on there, I'll put tank invulns on F. That's a really common thing for me to do. Or I'll put a major cooldown on there on another job. But those are just buttons that I really want to be tracking, because I don't like any other way I have to track them, or I don't like the way other keybinds feel. I have considered setting up entirely different sets of hotbars and UIs just so I can adjust these things so they don't seem as weird, I suppose. But whatever, as long as it feels good for me, that's all that matters. Now the rest of my keybinds are on my mouse. I currently use a SteelSeries Rival 500 MMO mouse, but any will really do so long as you're comfortable. You don't need this, but I personally can't imagine playing without an MMO mouse. I use 7 keybinds on my mouse, and then I use shift modifiers, and then I can add, that's basically more buttons for me to press on my mouse. Now, some people actually turn mouse buttons into shift control and alt modifiers and stuff like that, and then they just use the buttons on their keyboard. That doesn't work for me, but it is definitely something worth considering if you're not really comfortable reaching for shift control or alt. The skills I'll put on this are almost always offensive skills or defensive skills. Very consistently, I'll put like major parts of my rotation that pop up every minute, every 90 seconds, every 120 seconds. They'll almost always go on either the base buttons or the shift modified buttons, depending on the job. For tanks, it's just defensive abilities across the board. Pretty much all of them, again, go on these. And that I've actually managed to keep consistent. Just something about that just makes sense to me. I don't know why. But sometimes that's what keybinds are about. It's not about really being able to explain logically why you do it, because sometimes it doesn't have any consistency across jobs. But when you can find consistency and when you can find the thing that clicks, having all of these options is great, because you just find what's comfortable and then you stick to that. And if you have to make any modifications, it's a little bit of a learning process, but it's better off than just excluding things because you're kind of overwhelmed by them. Honestly, the biggest hurdle with my keybind style, I think, is dexterity. There's times where I strictly move by holding left and right click on my mouse so I can actually have free reign with my keyboard hand. Then there's times where I do the reverse, where I use, Q, W, E, and S to do a certain thing while all of my inputs are actually being done on the mouse itself. So it's really just a matter of getting comfortable. It's subconscious to me. I don't even think about it when I'm actually swapping between them, and kind of had to analyze that when I came into talking about this video. But personally, I could never really swing this any other way than the way that I do it, with the way that I comprehend it. Because if I did something like put all of my keybinds on my mouse or started hiding things on my UI, I think I would just not be able to do it. Maybe with enough practice, but it just isn't comfortable to me. And above all else, nobody should tell you what you have to do, what you should do with your keybinds. They can only make recommendations. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna find the thing that is most comfortable for you. And I just wanted to give you an idea of what's in my head, and maybe that'll register with you and maybe it won't. But it's always fun talking about this kind of stuff, so figured the updated video was well worth doing. But with that, that's going to be a wrap. A nice quick video, but let me know what you thought in the comment section of the video below, and be sure to share things like the way you think about your keybinds and why you do certain things the way that you do them, because I'm sure people are still going to be looking for advice on that and looking for ideas, so definitely give it a look-see in the comment section below. Anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care.